The boy was bleeding. Not badly. Just enough to leave small red fingerprints on Lillian's apron as he grabbed her wrist. "Please," he whispered. "Can you walk me home?" It was 11:42 p.m. in East London, and the cafe had already locked its doors. Chairs were upside down on tables. The rain outside had turned the street into a trembling mirror of neon reflections. Lillian had just switched off the last light when she noticed him standing by the window, silent, still watching. He didn't look lost. That was the first thing that unsettled her. He looked deliberate. His clothes were too sharp for a child wandering alone at that hour. Tailored navy coat, clean shoes, no mud, no panic in his eyes, just a quiet urgency. She knelt slightly. "Where are your parents?" He didn't answer that. His fingers tightened. "They're coming. I don't want them to find me alone." Something about that sentence felt backwards. Behind them, thunder rolled low over the Thames. She checked the street. Empty. Too empty. London never truly slept. But tonight, even the buses seemed to avoid this block. "You're bleeding," she said gently. "It's not mine." Her stomach tightened. Before she could ask another question, headlights flooded the glass window. Not one car. 3. Then 4. Black. Identical. Moving with synchronized precision. They didn't park. They surrounded. The cafe's neon sign flickered as engines idled outside like restrained animals. The boy's grip loosened slightly. "They're early," he murmured. Lillian's pulse began to climb. Who's early? But she already knew this wasn't social services. Car doors opened in perfect sequence. Not slammed, opened. Men stepped out wearing dark suits that weren't British tailoring. Too structured. Too deliberate. Their posture wasn't security. It was hierarchy. The cafe door handle moved once. Locked. Moved again. One of the men looked directly at the window. Not scanning. Targeting. Lillian felt it like a hand at her throat. And then the final car door opened. Slower. Measured. A man stepped out holding an umbrella, though the rain had already begun to fade. He was not old. He was not rushed. And he did not look at the cafe first. He looked at the boy. The boy stepped forward, releasing Lillian's hand. "Appa," he said softly. The man crossed the street without looking left or right. Traffic had stopped. Not because of lights, because no one dared pass. When he reached the cafe door, he didn't knock. One of the suited men produced a key. The lock turned. Lillian didn't remember unlocking it. The door opened. Warm air escaped into the cold. The man stepped inside. The boy walked to him immediately. There was no hug, no scolding, just a measured inspection. "You left the vehicle," the man said quietly in Korean. "Yes." "You made her touch you." "Yes." The man's eyes lifted slowly to Lillian. They were not angry. They were assessing. "You are injured?" he asked her in precise English. She shook her head. His gaze dropped to the faint red stain on her apron. "Then why are you bleeding?" Before she could answer, the boy spoke. "It's not hers." The silence that followed felt like it carried weight. The man removed his gloves carefully. Every motion controlled. Intentional. "Did anyone follow you?" he asked the boy. "No." The man looked to one of his guards. A subtle nod. Confirmed. The boy had not been tracked. Only then did the man fully face Lillian. "My son does not ask strangers for help." She swallowed. "He looked like he needed it." "He does not need it." The correction wasn't harsh. It was factual. Outside, engines continued humming. The man stepped closer. Not threatening. Just near enough that she could see the faint scar beneath his right ear. "You work here?" "Yes." "Until tonight?" Something in that phrasing felt wrong. "Until closing," she answered carefully. The boy looked up at his father again. I wanted to see if she would say yes. Lillian blinked. "See what?" The man's eyes shifted slightly. Not surprise. Not anger. Something else. Calculation. The boy turned back to her. "You didn't ask who I was." "You're a child," she said automatically. A faint smile touched the man's mouth. Most people in this city ask who someone belongs to before helping them. She felt something cold settle in her stomach. Belongs to. The man reached into his coat pocket and placed a folded white handkerchief on the counter. There was blood on it. Fresh. Did he tell you where this came from? He asked. No. The boy looked at her carefully, testing again. The man turned slightly toward the door. You will close early tonight. I already have. No, he corrected gently. You will close permanently. The words landed heavier than shouting. I don't understand. I know. A guard stepped forward and placed a slim black envelope on the counter beside the handkerchief. Lillian didn't touch it. What is this? Compensation. For what? For being noticed. That was when the fear shifted from confusion to clarity. This wasn't about a lost child. This was about selection. The man crouched to the boy's level. You are finished. The boy looked almost disappointed. May I say goodbye? A pause. Then a nod. The boy turned back to Lillian. Thank you for saying yes, he said. His voice was no longer pleading. It was measured, as if he had confirmed something important. He reached into his pocket and pressed something small into her hand. Cold. Metal. Before she could look at it, the father rose. From this moment, the man said quietly, you have a choice. Her throat tightened. What choice? To forget tonight and leave London within 48 hours. The engines outside revved slightly. Or, he held her gaze without blinking. Or stay. The boy stepped outside with the guards. The rain had stopped completely. The father lingered 1 second longer. If you stay, he said softly, you will not be able to unknow what you now know. And what is that? His eyes hardened, not cruel, just absolute. That my son chooses carefully. He stepped out into the night. The convoy moved in synchronized silence. Within seconds, the street was empty again, as if nothing had happened, except the black envelope, except the blood, except the small metal object still pressed into her palm. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. A message appeared. You were not chosen by accident. If this opening just hooked you, pause right here and subscribe. This story gets darker, and you won't want to miss what happens next. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? Lillian finally opened her hand. It wasn't a coin. It was a key, with a number engraved on it. 17. And she had never felt more watched in her life. Lillian didn't sleep. The number 17 sat on her kitchen table beside the black envelope she still hadn't opened. The key was heavier than it looked, cold even hours later, as if it retained the memory of someone else's hand. Outside her flat in Hackney, London returned to its ordinary rhythm. Early buses groaning, shop shutters rising, someone arguing about parking. But nothing felt ordinary anymore. Her phone remained silent after that single message. You were not chosen by accident. At 6:12 a.m., another message arrived. Locker, King's Cross, 17. No signature, no threat, just direction. She told herself not to go. She showered, dressed, and went anyway. King's Cross at that hour carried a strange duality. Sleepy tourists dragging luggage, commuters moving with cold precision, the station echoing with announcements that blurred into static. Lillian moved through it as if underwater, hyper-aware of every reflection in glass. Twice she thought she saw the same man in a gray coat. Twice he disappeared before she could be sure. The lockers were near the far corridor, away from the ticket barriers. Number 17 waited quietly, unremarkable. Her pulse climbed as she inserted the key. Turned smoothly. No hesitation. Inside was not money, not drugs, not a weapon. It was a school exercise book. Cheap, blue cover, corners bent. Her stomach tightened. She opened it. The first page held a child's handwriting in careful English. If you are reading this, it means I was right about you. She flipped to the next page. My name is Minjun Park. I am 10 years old. My father says I must learn to measure people before I trust them. This is part of my test. Her breath caught. Test. She turned another page. Most adults look at me and see danger. Or opportunity. You saw a boy. Her throat felt dry. Page after page detailed observations. Not about business. Not about crime. About her. The way she gave a free croissant to a delivery driver who forgot his wallet. The way she ignored the man who tried to flirt too aggressively instead of escalating it. The way she closed the cafe each night with the same ritual, lights, counter, door. Like someone trying to keep chaos outside. She didn't remember being watched. Which meant she had been. The final page held only one sentence. If she comes, she stays. Her phone buzzed again. You opened it. Her head snapped up. Across the corridor, leaning casually against a pillar, stood the man from last night. Not the father. One of the guards. Gray suit. Neutral expression. Not hiding. He wasn't holding a weapon. He didn't need to. She walked toward him slowly. Why are you doing this? You were evaluated. For what? A role. She laughed once. Short. Sharp. I'm a waitress. He tilted his head slightly. You were. The station announcements crackled overhead. A train to Edinburgh delayed. A child crying somewhere nearby. Your employer has accepted compensation, he continued. The cafe is closed permanently. Her heart dropped. You shut it down? We removed it. Removed. Like it was furniture. Why me? She demanded. That question will be answered if you accept. And if I don't? You leave London. Or. His eyes didn't change. There is no or. Which meant there was. She looked down at the notebook again. At Minjun's handwriting. Controlled. Observant. Too controlled for a child. Is he safe? She asked quietly. The guard's pause was almost invisible. He is necessary. That wasn't an answer. She felt anger spark under the fear. He's 10. He is heir. The word landed like stone. Is that what this is? She asked. Training. The guard stepped closer, lowering his voice. Mr. Park believes empathy is a liability. His son disagrees. Silence stretched between them. Last night, the guard continued, was not about danger. It was about probability. Probability of what? That you would choose to help without calculating return. Her thoughts raced. So what happens now? The guard gestured toward the station exit. A black car idled discreetly near the curb, not part of a convoy this time. Just one vehicle. You will meet him, the guard said. The father. Yes. And if I say no? The guard's gaze shifted briefly toward the moving crowds. You already came. That hit harder than a threat. She looked back at the locker, then at the notebook in her hands. This was insane. But insanity had structure, and she could feel it tightening around her. She stepped outside. The air smelled like diesel and rain. The car door opened before she reached it. Inside, the father sat alone. No umbrella, no gloves, just a dark coat and the same precise stillness. He did not greet her. He did not smile. He waited until the door closed. You chose to stay, he said. I chose to ask questions. Questions are a form of staying. The car pulled into traffic smoothly. London moved around them unaware. She held the notebook tightly. You've been watching me. Yes. For how long? 3 weeks. Her pulse spiked. Why? My son requested an experiment. She turned toward him sharply. With me. With humanity. His tone was calm, not mocking. Children in his position, Mr. Park continued, grow up surrounded by performance, fear, transaction. He wanted to confirm whether altruism exists without incentive. And if it didn't, he would adjust. The car stopped at a red light. A cyclist passed, oblivious. And what am I adjusting to? She asked. He studied her briefly. London is unstable. That's not new. For my family, it is. Something in his voice shifted. Subtle. There is a fracture, he said. Within my organization. Her stomach dropped. You think I can fix that? No. Then what? My son believes you can anchor him. The absurdity almost made her laugh again. I don't know him. You do not need to know him, Mr. Park replied. You need to remain yourself. She stared at him. You shut down my job to test me. I removed variables. And what if I refuse to be your moral experiment? He didn't hesitate. Then you leave with more money than you have ever seen. And you never speak of us again. And if I stay? He met her eyes fully now. If you stay, you will witness what most people pretend does not exist. A beat. And you may not survive it. The red light turned green. The car moved. Her heartbeat was loud in her ears. Outside, London blurred past. She looked down at the notebook one last time. If she comes, she stays. You said there's a fracture, she said quietly. What kind? Mr. Park's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Internal, which meant betrayal, which meant danger wasn't outside the convoy. It was inside it. The car turned off the main road into a quieter district. Tall gates appeared ahead. Security cameras rotated smoothly. The gates opened before the car reached them. As they entered the compound, Lillian realized something cold and certain. She was not being recruited. She was being positioned. And somewhere inside this place, a 10-year-old boy was watching to see if she would break. Before we go further, pause for a second. If you're still here, it means this story already has you. Subscribe now because what happens next changes everything. And if you haven't yet, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. London? New York? Somewhere unexpected? I want to see how far this reaches. The gates closed behind the car with a final metallic certainty that felt louder than it should have. Lillian didn't speak as they pulled into the courtyard. The estate wasn't flashy. No gold statues. No exaggerated displays of wealth. It was restrained, controlled. Modern glass and stone wrapped in silence. Power that didn't need to introduce itself. The car stopped. Mr. Park stepped out first. She followed. No guards approached this time, but she could feel them. Cameras pivoted softly. Windows reflected shapes that weren't decorative. Inside, the air smelled faintly of cedar and something metallic beneath it. The walls were minimalist, almost clinical, except for one long hallway lined with framed calligraphy. Korean characters brushed in black ink. Discipline, loyalty, patience. She couldn't read them, but she could feel the intention. He is in the atrium, Mr. Park said. They entered a wide open space filled with natural light pouring from a ceiling of glass panels. And there he was, Min-jun, not in a suit, not composed. He was sitting cross-legged on the floor, pieces of a dismantled chessboard scattered around him. Not broken, disassembled. He looked up as they approached. You came, he said. His tone was observational, not excited. I opened the locker, Lillian replied. That was expected. She studied him more carefully now. Without the night rain, without fear clouding her perception, he looked younger, smaller. The cut near his wrist had been cleaned and stitched. Was it yours? She asked quietly. The faintest pause. Yes. Mr. Park didn't react. Why? She pressed. Min-jun's eyes shifted to the chess pieces. Because pain clarifies response. Lillian's stomach turned. That's not something a 10-year-old should believe. It's something a 10-year-old in my position must test. She stepped closer to him. Your position isn't more important than your childhood. Mr. Park moved slightly at that, but didn't interrupt. Min-jun tilted his head. Childhood is a temporary luxury. And empathy? She asked. He held her gaze. That's what I'm measuring. Silence stretched between them. You watched me for 3 weeks, she said. Yes. And what did you conclude? That you behave consistently even when unseen. She felt the weight of that. That's not a compliment. That's surveillance. He considered that. It's also rare. Mr. Park finally spoke. The fracture I mentioned is not theoretical. Min-jun rose slowly to his feet. There is someone inside our organization, Mr. Park continued, who believes my son is too impressionable. Meaning? Lillian asked. Meaning? Min-jun answered calmly. They think empathy makes me weak. Lillian felt a chill move down her spine. And this person, Mr. Park added, is waiting For what? She asked. For me to fail, Minjun said softly. The air in the atrium felt heavier now. You think I'm here to what? Teach you kindness? Lillian asked. No, Minjun replied. You are here to remain unchanged. She frowned. That makes no sense. It does, Mr. Park said quietly. If he can witness someone who refuses to adapt to fear, he may resist becoming what they expect. And if he doesn't? Mr. Park's silence was answer enough. A door at the far end of the atrium opened. Another man entered, older than Mr. Park, slightly broader. His presence was not loud, but it was colder, calculating. His eyes moved to Lillian immediately. So, the man said in measured English. This is the experiment. Mr. Park's jaw tightened. This is not your concern, Director Han. Director. Internal fracture. Lillian felt the tension snap invisible threads in the room. Director Han smiled faintly. Everything concerning the heir is my concern. Minjun stepped slightly forward, not hiding behind his father. I requested her, he said evenly. Director Han's gaze sharpened. You requested a civilian. I requested data. The older man's eyes flicked to Lillian again. Data can be corrupted, and fear can be inherited, Minjun replied. The temperature in the room dropped several degrees. Director Han approached slowly, not threatening, not rushed. Miss? He prompted. Lillian. Miss Lillian, he said softly. Do you understand where you are? Yes. Do you understand what happens to liabilities? Mr. Park stepped forward sharply. Enough. Director Han didn't look away from her. My concern is simple. Sentiment destabilizes succession. And brutality stabilizes it? Lillian asked before she could stop herself. A faint flicker of surprise passed over his face. Then amusement. Interesting, he murmured. Minjun watched her closely, measuring, always measuring. Director Han turned to Mr. Park. If she remains, she becomes leverage. I am aware, Mr. Park replied. And if she leaves? She leaves. Director Han smiled thinly. We will see. He turned and exited as calmly as he entered. The door closed. Silence. Lillian exhaled slowly. That's the fracture. Yes, Mr. Park said. Minjun crouched back down to the chess pieces and began reassembling the board. He believes power must be absolute, the boy said quietly. No softness, no unpredictability. And you disagree? Lillian asked. He placed a rook carefully in its square. I believe unpredictability is survival. She watched him rebuild the board piece by piece. And what role do you think I play in that? She asked. Minjun looked up at her. You are not afraid of him. She realized he was right. She was unsettled, angry, confused, but not afraid. That makes you an anomaly, he said. Mr. Park's phone vibrated in his pocket. He glanced at it briefly. His expression changed. Subtly. Danger. There has been movement, he said quietly. Movement? Lillian asked. Mr. Park looked at Minjun. They are accelerating. Director Han wasn't waiting anymore. Lillian felt something inside her lock into place. This wasn't a moral experiment. It was timing, and she had entered at exactly the wrong or right moment. Minjun placed the final piece on the board. Checkmate. But there was no opposing side. He looked up at her. They will try to scare you, he said calmly. They already did. He shook his head slightly. No, that was introduction. And somewhere beyond the estate walls, something had already begun. The first explosion wasn't loud. It was contained, precise. A tremor beneath the estate that rippled through the atrium floor like something shifting underground. Lillian's head snapped toward the ceiling as a faint vibration passed through the glass panels. Not enough to shatter. Enough to warn. Mr. Park didn't flinch. Minjun didn't look surprised. They won't strike directly, the boy said calmly, adjusting one of the chess pieces by a millimeter. They'll destabilize the perimeter. Another tremor followed. This one closer. Somewhere beyond the compound walls, alarms began to pulse. Not chaotic, not frantic. Controlled warning tones. Security shifting from passive to active. Lillian's pulse surged. That was not just movement. Mr. Park turned toward one of the side corridors. Director Han is testing response time. Testing? She demanded. With explosives? Not explosives, Minjun corrected. Disruptions. Infrastructure. The estate lights flickered once, twice, then stabilized. Mr. Park's phone buzzed rapidly now. He ignored the first two calls. Answered the third. Yes. Silence. I expected that. Another pause. No. She remains. He ended the call without elaborating. Was that him? Lillian asked. No, Mr. Park replied. That was loyalty dividing. A heavy metallic gate somewhere outside began sliding shut. The sound echoed faintly through the estate's foundation. They are isolating us, Lillian said quietly. They are observing, Minjun replied. If we panic, they win. You're 10, she said sharply. You're not supposed to sound like this. He looked at her, something almost vulnerable flickering beneath his composure. I am not allowed to sound like anything else. That hit harder than the tremor. Another vibration. Closer now. This one strong enough to rattle a glass panel along the upper frame. Mr. Park moved to a concealed control console along the wall and pressed a sequence only he seemed to understand. Security feeds lit up across a hidden display panel. Outer gates, driveway, street beyond the compound. Black vans. Not theirs. Parked 3 streets away. Director Han wouldn't risk open conflict, Lillian said. No, Mr. Park replied quietly. He would create plausible instability. Minjun rose to his feet slowly. They are watching you, the boy said to Lillian. She frowned. Me? Yes. If you leave now, Mr. Park added. The message is clear. That empathy is weakness, Minjun finished. And if I stay? She asked. They escalate. The choice hung in the air. Not dramatic. Not cinematic. Real. She looked at the security feeds. At the calculated positioning of the vans. At the subtle coordination. They think I'll run, she said. Yes, Mr. Park replied. And if I don't? Minjun stepped closer to her, voice lowering. Then you changed the equation. Another tremor. Closer. A faint crack appeared along one edge of the upper glass panel. Not catastrophic. Symbolic. This wasn't about destruction. It was about pressure. Director Han was applying it carefully. Mr. Park's phone vibrated again. He didn't look at it this time. Instead, he looked at Lillian. This is the moment, he said quietly. You decide whether you are variable or constant. Outside, one of the black vans moved slightly forward. Not toward the estate, just enough to show intent. She exhaled slowly. Fear tried to rise. She let it pass through instead of settling. I'm not leaving, she said. Minjun's eyes sharpened. Mr. Park's expression didn't change, but something in his posture shifted. Not relief. Recognition. Another vibration. Stronger. This one triggered a faint crack across the atrium ceiling. Security feeds flickered. One of the perimeter cameras went dark. They've cut a section of power, Mr. Park murmured. Minjun turned to her. You should sit. I'm not fragile. No, he said softly. You're visible. The implication settled cold in her chest. She moved deliberately to one of the atrium chairs and sat. Not out of fear, but out of refusal to perform it. The vans outside didn't advance. They waited. Minutes stretched. The tension wasn't explosive. It was suffocating. A message arrived on Mr. Park's phone. He glanced at it briefly, then turned the screen toward Lillian. A single image. Her flat in Hackney. Taken minutes ago. Lights on. Door intact. Warning, Minjun said quietly. They're reminding you that you have a life outside this compound, Mr. Park added. Her hands curled into fists slowly. They think that will make me run. Yes. Another crack formed along the glass ceiling. The security feeds restored partially. One van reversed slightly, retreated, not fully, just enough. Director Han had measured, applied pressure, observed, withdrawn. For now, the tremors stopped. The alarms softened. Silence reclaimed the estate in stages. Lillian's heartbeat took longer to slow. Mr. Park studied her carefully. "You did not panic. You don't know that," she replied quietly. "I do." Minjun approached the security display. "They expected tears," he said softly. "Or anger." "What did they get?" she asked. The boy looked back at her. Stillness. The power stabilized completely. One by one, the black vans began pulling away from the outer streets. Director Han had completed his message. Mr. Park turned off the display. "This will not be the last demonstration," he said. "I know. And it will escalate." "I know." Minjun stepped closer again. "They will not target you directly," he said. "That would expose their intent. So they'll target everything around me." "Yes." She nodded once, then looked directly at Mr. Park. "You said I may not survive this." "Yes. And if I leave now? You leave alive." "But he loses." Mr. Park didn't answer. He didn't need to. Silence confirmed it. Minjun looked down briefly at the chessboard again. "They believe power requires fear," he said quietly. "I believe it requires choice." Lillian stood slowly. "I'm not here because I think I can fix your empire," she said. "I'm here because I won't be manipulated into fear." Mr. Park watched her carefully. "And that," he said quietly, "is precisely why they are afraid of you." Outside, London continued as if nothing had shifted. Inside the estate, lines had been drawn. Director Han had tested pressure, and she had remained. But the next move wouldn't be a tremor. It would be personal. If you're still here, you already know this isn't a normal story. Like the video right now, because what's coming next won't be infrastructure. It will be someone's blood. The blood came faster than anyone expected. It wasn't hers. It wasn't Minjun's. It was Mr. Park's driver. The call arrived just after midnight. Single vehicle collision. North Circular. No witnesses. Engine fire contained. Mr. Park didn't react when he heard it. He simply ended the call and looked at Minjun. "Intentional?" the boy asked. "Yes." "Message?" "Yes." Lillian felt the weight of it settle immediately. Director Han had shifted from tremors to flesh. "Was he loyal?" she asked quietly. "For 22 years," Mr. Park replied. "And now? He is gone. No anger, no shouting, just fact." Minjun stood still, eyes fixed somewhere distant. "They are accelerating." "Yes." Lillian felt something inside her harden. Not into fear, but clarity. "They want you to overreact." Mr. Park looked at her. "They want you to prove empathy clouds judgment." Silence. Minjun's voice was lower now. "If father retaliates publicly, Han consolidates support." "And if you do nothing?" she asked. "Perception of weakness," Mr. Park replied. The chessboard in the atrium sat untouched tonight. No pieces moved. No metaphors. Just reality. Lillian stepped closer to Mr. Park. "You said earlier that I may not survive this." "Yes." "Then use me." Minjun's head snapped toward her. Mr. Park's eyes sharpened. "Clarify." "Han believes I'm leverage. A liability. An emotional fracture point." She inhaled slowly. "Then make me visible." "That increases risk," Mr. Park said calmly. "Yes. And if they escalate further?" "They already have." Silence settled heavily between them. Minjun watched her differently now, not measuring, studying. "You are proposing exposure," he said quietly. "Yes." "To force a reveal," he concluded. "Yes." Mr. Park's gaze did not soften, but it changed. "If you become visible," he said, "Han must decide whether to strike directly. And if he does, he exposes himself. And if he doesn't?" He appears hesitant. Minjun's breathing slowed, controlled. "They think I will collapse if she is threatened." he said. Lillian looked at him. Will you? A long pause. No, it wasn't bravado. It was resolution. Mr. Park turned slightly toward the window overlooking the courtyard. You are asking to stand in front of a blade, he said. I'm asking you to stop pretending this isn't already happening. Another silence. Heavy. Then Mr. Park nodded once. Very well. The plan unfolded quickly. By morning, discreet information began circulating through internal channels. The heir's civilian contact remains within estate grounds. No concealment. No denial. Visibility. By afternoon, a photograph surfaced internally. Not leaked publicly. Shared strategically. Lillian walking beside Min-jun in the courtyard. Unarmed. Unhidden. Deliberate. Director Han responded within hours. Not with violence. With invitation. A formal internal assembly. Mandatory attendance. Location. A secured warehouse near Canary Wharf. Pretext. Organizational restructuring. Reality. Confrontation. The night of the assembly, London felt heavier than usual. Clouds hung low over the Thames. The warehouse interior was vast. Concrete floors. Minimal lighting. Rows of suited figures standing with calculated spacing. No chaos. Just discipline. Mr. Park entered first. Min-jun beside him. Lillian walked half a step behind. Not hidden. Not shielded. Eyes followed her immediately. Assessment. Resentment. Curiosity. Director Han stood near the center platform. Calm. Composed. You bring her openly, he observed. Yes, Mr. Park replied. And you believe this is strength? I believe concealment implies fear. Han's gaze shifted to Lillian. You understand where you stand? Yes. Among men who do not hesitate. I'm aware. A faint murmur rippled through the room. Han stepped closer. You are not afraid. No. Why? She held his gaze steadily. Because fear is predictable. Silence. Min-jun didn't move. Mr. Park didn't interrupt. Han circled slowly, examining her as if she were an object under glass. You believe your presence disrupts power, he said softly. No, she replied. I believe your fear of disruption reveals insecurity. A sharp intake of breath from somewhere in the crowd. Han stopped walking. His expression didn't shift. But the heir did. You presume much, he said. I observe, she corrected. Min-jun's voice cut through the space quietly. She behaves the same under pressure. Han's eyes flicked to the boy. And that impresses you? It informs me. A beat. Han turned to the gathered members. You see what sentiment does? He said calmly. It invites chaos. Mr. Park's voice entered smoothly. No, it exposes it. The tension stretched to breaking point. Then, a single gunshot echoed. Not from Han's side, from the far edge of the warehouse. One of the members collapsed. Shock rippled outward. Guards drew weapons instantly. Chaos threatened to ignite. But Mr. Park raised his hand sharply. Stand down. The command sliced through the noise. Silence fought its way back. Han looked genuinely surprised. The fallen member groaned, alive. Shot in the shoulder. Not fatal. Min-jun stepped forward slightly. Fear, he said calmly, creates panic. All eyes shifted. Control, he continued, creates hierarchy. He turned to the injured man. Who fired? The man hesitated, then pointed. Not at Han. At someone 2 rows behind him. Internal fracture. Not singular. Multiple. Han's gaze darkened. This wasn't the clean confrontation he had anticipated. Mr. Park stepped forward. Your impatience has exposed weakness, he said quietly to Han. Silence hung heavy. Lillian realized what had just happened. The gunshot hadn't destabilized Mr. Park. It had destabilized Han's assumption of loyalty. The room shifted. Not loudly. Subtly. Power realigned. Han said nothing more. He turned and walked away from the platform. No dramatic exit. Just retreat. But it was visible. And in this world, visibility mattered. As the assembly dissolved, Minjun exhaled slowly. They expected me to react emotionally, he said. You didn't, Lillian replied. He looked at her. I recalculated. Mr. Park studied both of them quietly. Tonight hadn't ended the fracture, but it had revealed it. And revealed fractures are easier to break. The war wasn't finished. It had only changed shape. Before we finish this story, subscribe now if you haven't. Because what happens in the next few minutes is the reason this entire experiment began. And if you've stayed this long, comment still here so I know who made it to the end. The retaliation didn't come from Director Han. Came from someone smaller, more desperate. 3 nights after the warehouse assembly, Lillian returned to her flat for the first time since the tremors began. Mr. Park had insisted on discreet surveillance, but no convoy, no spectacle, just distance. London felt normal again, almost offensively normal. Her streetlight flickered the same way it always had. The corner shop still smelled of stale bread and cheap detergent. Nothing looked like war. She unlocked her door, paused. The air inside felt wrong. Not disturbed, adjusted. She stepped in slowly. Nothing overturned, nothing stolen. But her bookshelf had shifted half an inch. Her kettle sat slightly off-center. Tiny changes. Intentional. A message without words. Her phone vibrated. Unknown number. We adapt faster than you think. She didn't reply. Didn't panic. She stepped further inside. And then she saw it. On her kitchen table. The blue exercise book. Minjun's handwriting. Her pulse didn't spike. It slowed. That was new. She opened it carefully. New page. You told me unpredictability is survival. So I tested it. Her throat tightened. Footsteps sounded softly behind her. She didn't turn immediately. She already knew. Minjun stood in the doorway. Alone. No guards. No father. Just him. You weren't followed? She asked quietly. I dismissed them. That's not safe. It's necessary. He stepped inside fully. I wanted to see if they would move without permission. And did they? Yes. Her stomach dropped. Who? He met her eyes. Not Han. The silence that followed was heavier than any tremor. There's another fracture, she said softly. Yes. Inside your father's loyalists. Yes. She exhaled slowly. You shouldn't be here. I know. Then why are you? He walked to the table and placed something beside the notebook. A small recording device. I needed them to see me leave, he said. Realization hit her like ice water. Your bait. No. His voice was calm. I am proof. Proof of what? Her mind raced. They think you influence me, he continued. So they will approach you first. Minjun. He cut her off gently. They believe I am being softened. Corrupted. And are you? He held her gaze steadily. No. I am being refined. Footsteps sounded outside. Not loud. Measured. Lillian's heart didn't race this time. It steadied. They're here, she said. Yes. And your father? He knows. Does he? Minjun's silence answered enough. The knock came next. 3 taps. Polite. Calculated. Lillian walked to the door. Didn't open it yet. Who is it? She asked calmly. Director Han, came the reply. Her eyes met Minjun's. So it had circled back. She opened the door slowly. Han stood there alone. No visible guards. No weapon drawn. Good evening, he said softly. You're bold, she replied. Visibility is contagious. His eyes flicked to Minjun inside. You dismissed your protection. Yes. Han stepped inside without invitation. Closed the door gently behind him. You risk much, he said to the boy. No. Minjun replied evenly. You do. Silence. The air in the flat felt smaller than the estate ever had. Han turned to Lillian. You understand this ends tonight. How? She asked. With clarity. He looked back at Minjun. You are heir, Han said calmly. But heir does not mean leader. And fear does not mean control, Minjun replied. Han's jaw tightened faintly. You think empathy makes you unpredictable, Han said. It makes you manipulable. Minjun didn't flinch. Then manipulate me. A beat. Han's eyes sharpened. That is an invitation? No, the boy replied quietly. It is exposure. Before Han could respond, the door behind him opened again. Mr. Park stepped inside. Not rushed, not dramatic, just present. You see, Mr. Park said softly, this is the difference. Han didn't turn immediately. You allowed him to leave, he said. Yes. You knew I would follow. Yes. Silence thickened. You gamble with your son, Han said. I measure my son, Mr. Park corrected. Minjun's voice cut through. They needed to see whether I collapse under threat. Han finally turned to face Mr. Park. And did he? Mr. Park's eyes didn't leave his son. No. The recording device on the table blinked red. Active. Han noticed, realized. The entire encounter had been documented. His visit, his presence, his unilateral move without council approval. Power shifted. Not violently, decisively. You forced this, Han said quietly. No, Mr. Park replied. You accelerated it. Sirens sounded faintly in the distance. Not police. Private security mobilizing. Han looked at Lillian one final time. You remain an anomaly, he said. No, she replied calmly. I remain myself. That unsettled him more than any weapon could have. He stepped toward the door. Paused. You believe this ends fracture? He asked. Mr. Park's answer was measured. No. Clarifies it. Han left without another word. The door closed. Silence returned in slow waves. Minjun exhaled. You risked much, Lillian said to Mr. Park. Yes. And if he had drawn a weapon? He would not. How do you know? Mr. Park looked at his son. Because fear seeks control, not chaos. The recording device clicked off. The moment had passed, but something deeper had shifted. Minjun walked toward the window and looked out at the London street below. They will not challenge openly again, he said quietly. No, Mr. Park agreed. They will adapt. Yes. Lillian crossed her arms gently. And you? Minjun turned to her. I already have. There was no celebration, no dramatic victory, just evolution. Power had not softened. It had stabilized. And in that stabilization, something dangerous had changed. Not in the empire, in the air. Mr. Park looked at Lillian one final time. You may leave now, he said. And if I stay? His expression didn't shift. Then you are no longer experiment. She considered that, looked at Minjun, looked at the quiet London street, and realized something simple. She had never been leverage. She had been calibration. If you made it all the way here like the video right now, it tells me you value stories that don't follow the usual script. And subscribe if you want more cinematic narratives like this. Before you go, comment where you're watching from and tell me this was empathy weakness or strategy. Because in the end, the real fracture wasn't inside the empire. It was inside the definition of power. And that changes everything.